And in today's episode, I'm going to show you how to make a simple dialog box using the Dialog plugin from the jQuery UI framework. Now, I'm going to start by going to a website called jQueryui.com. I'm going to click on the download link. This is going to take me to a page where I can select all the components, widgets, and effects that I want in my download folder. So I'm going to click here on download. It's going to ask me to save the file. It's a zip file. So I click OK. I already have a zip file, so I don't need to save it. And I'm going to go to Dreamweaver and I'm going to create a new folder. I'm going to name it CSS and another folder called JS. Okay, and I'm going to go here to my site folder, and here I have the zip file that I just downloaded. I'm going to open it, go to the CSS folder. I'm going to copy these two to my CSS folder. Okay, here they are. Go back and open the zip file, and I'm going to copy these two files. Now this is the jQuery library and this is the jQuery UI library. So I'm going to go ahead and copy them, go back to the site, and I'm going to move them here to the JS file. Okay, that's done. Now, one thing I like to do in order to keep things organized is that I always move the images folder to the root level of the site. I'm going to go ahead and do that. And Dreamweaver is going to ask me if I want to update the links in the CSS file. And I'm going to click update. Okay, now we're all set. Okay. Now I have created a document with a completed version of this demo. So I'm going to open it and I'm going to preview it in my browser. Here it is. When I click on this button, it's going to show me the dialog box. And here it is. Let's close this. And close this. I'm going to create new HTML document. I'm going to save it. Name it Dialog. Right? I'm going to go ahead and import the files that I need for this plugin, which is the jQuery library, the jQuery UI library, and the jQuery UI CSS file. Okay, so now look for the files. First I have to load the jQuery library. I click OK, and here it is. Now the jQuery UI library. Click OK, OK, and here it is. Now the style sheet. It's my style sheet. Okay. To type style sheet. Okay. Just a link to my style sheet. Now for this plugin, you need at least two elements. The container for the dialog box and the trigger. So I'm gonna go ahead and start writing an input tag. Type, I'm gonna set it to button. I'm gonna give it an ID and I'm gonna name it trigger. And I'm gonna give it a value as well. Let's name it open dialog box. Okay, now for the dialog box element, I'm gonna open a div tag. I'm gonna give it an ID, and its ID it's gonna be, say, dialog box. And let's give it some content. This is a dialog box. All right, now I have the two elements that I need for this plugin to work. Okay, now I'm gonna open a script tag. All right, and I'm gonna declare a jQuery function that is going to be executed when the page loads. So let's write it, and it's document dot ready. It's a function. Okay, now we have that. Now inside this function, I'm gonna initialize the dialog plugin, and I have to give the plugin a selector, which is going to be the container for the dialog box. It's an ID, and we named it dialog box dot dialog, right? And for the trigger, we need to tie a function that it's going to be executed when this element is clicked. So we're going to write jQuery. It has an ID, and its ID is trigger dot click function Okay, now when this element is clicked, I'm gonna tell the dialog plugin to open the dialog box. And when I call the function, I have to give it a parameter called open, which is a string. Notice that it's enclosed in quotes, right? Now, if I preview the document, the dialog plugin, it's going to be initialized with its default settings. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to go to my browser, reload the page, and here it is. Now you see the dialog box right away because there's a parameter called auto open and its default value is set to true. Sometimes we want that and sometimes we don't. In this case, I don't want it like that. So I'm going to set that parameter to false. And again, it's auto open. I'm going to set it to false. I'm going to save it and preview. See, I reloaded the page and there is no dialog box. When I click the button, here it is. Right? Notice that I can drag and resize this dialog box. And there are two parameters that control that functionality. One is draggable. I'm going to set it to false. And the other one is resizable. I'm going to set it to false as well. So I'm going to save it, preview. Right? Now notice that I cannot drag the dialog box or resize it. Okay. Now, can also control the dimensions of the dialog box, and there's an option called width, and this option accepts auto. Notice that it's a string, or an integer. Okay? If I set it to auto, the width of the dialog box is going to be determined by its content. And again, sometimes we want that functionality and sometimes we don't. In this case, I'm going to set it up to 350. Okay, and now for the height, I'm going to set it to 300. Okay, and I'm going to give it a title. The title option accepts a string. So let's give it my dialog box. Let's save it. Go back to the browser, reload, click, and here it is. It's 350 pixels wide and 300 pixels tall. And it has the title, my dialog box. Now, you can replace this option by giving the container a title attribute. Let's say okay, I'm gonna get rid of the title option. I'm gonna save it, go back to the browser, open the dialog box, and here's my new title. Okay, now I'm going to tell the plugin what to do when it's open, and the parameter for that is show, and show accepts a string. That string can be any of the jQuery effects. And let's try fade. And it's another parameter called, another option called hide. And I'm gonna give it, let's say, a slide effect. All right, I'm gonna save it. Go back to the browser. Open the dialog box and notice that it faded in. When I close it, it should slide to the left. And fade in and slide. Okay. Back to Dreamweaver. I'm going to change this to fade. And this one, I'm going to change it to, let's say, bounce. Save. And here's my bounce effect and fade effect. Okay. Now, you can also add buttons to the bottom area of the dialog box. And the name of the option is buttons. And this option can take several parameters. Each parameter are the actual buttons. So I'm gonna start with a string, and this string is going to be the text that it's going to be inside the button. So this is going to be a function, and this function will tell the button what to do. And since we have the string called close, we're gonna make the dialog box to close. Okay. Okay, I'm saving it. Go back to the browser. See that there's a button here on the bottom area. This is called a button panel. When I click here, this should close the dialog box, and it's gone. Right? Now there's another option called dialog class. Now, this parameter accepts a string, and what it will do, it's gonna give the whole plugin, it's gonna give it a class, and this is done for additional theming of the plugin. If you want to customize it, this is one way to go. It's not the only way, but it sure helps. So let's give it a I don't know, custom. Okay. Now the whole dialog box has a class called custom. It's better if I show you. I'm gonna open up my console here, and where is it at? Here it is. I can't select it, but here is the custom, the name of the class that we just gave it to it. Let's close the console, close this. And also you can give it a z-index, right? The z-index, it's calculated automatically, but if you have multiple dialog boxes in a page, it's good that you give it the its z-index, just to make sure that they're showing right. Okay, we don't need this parameter for now. This one. Okay, now another parameter that is very useful, it's the modal parameter, and its default value, it's false. If I set it to true, okay, reloading the page. Now notice that the background is gonna darken a little bit. This is the overlay, and I cannot interact with the rest of the elements on the page. If I close the dialog box, then I'm back. Right? I can click here. Now I can't. And all of these elements that are generated are fully, you can fully customize them and make it look however you want to make them look like. So I'm gonna close this out, and that's it for today. This concludes today's tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it, and make sure to come back next week, because I'm gonna do a demonstration on how to implement a jQuery date picker using the jQuery UI framework. Until next time.